Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today to talk to you about a project that we've been developing at Dartmouth College to automatically convert DICOMs from the scanner into bits datasets. And before going into the details, I would like to define some words so that we're all on the same page. And the first word that I want to define is bits datasets. I'm sure this audience is very familiar with what bits are, but for those who are not, BID stands for Brain Imaging Data Structure, and it was a community effort led by Chris Gorgolewski and Russ Boltrak, among others, to standardize a structure, a convention on how to name files for neuroimaging experiments. And at the bottom here, I'm showing an example from one study, and I just want to say that during my PhD, I think this has been the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because now it's so much easier to make pipelines or to run analyses that are generalizable. The second word that I want to define is version control, because we often think about version control for code, but actually also data has versions and needs version control. For example, when you release a data set, you might find that there are some problems with a header or something, and you want to keep versions of that. Or even whenever you're running an analysis, the derivatives have versions, and you want to keep track of that as well. And so to do that in our project, we're actually using datalad. And datalad, if you're not familiar with it, is a Python toolbox that builds on Git and Git Annex to make data management much, much easier. And I strongly recommend you guys to check the tutorials on the website. And I also wrote a small blog post on how I use it every day for data management for my experiments. Once you have a bits datasets, the benefits are enormous. It's really, if you haven't tried, it's really, really cool. The first benefit is that, first of all, you can use the bits validator to test whether your dataset is compliant and if there are any problems with the JSON sidecar files and the headers. But then you can use all the amazing toolboxes that have been developed recently, such as fMRI Prep for preprocessing or MRQC for data QA. However, I think that there's a problem. And the problem is that we are very busy, and I honestly don't care about file names, and I don't want to spend my entire life manually changing file names. And luckily for us, with computers, we can just automate things. We can make a pipeline that automatically convert, as in this case, from scanner data into bits. And this is exactly what we try to do at Dartmouth College. So this is the workflow of what we're doing right now at Dartmouth. And it's actually pretty simple. We just take the data of the scanner, and those are being transferred to a server. And then on the server, we are using existing toolboxes like HeuDiConv, which is a Python toolbox that stands for Heuristic DICOM Converters, that inside uses DCM to NIX to convert the data from DICOM into NIFTs. And then we store all of these into Git repositories or Git Annex repositories using datalad. And all the conversion is made within a singularity or a Docker container for reproducibility. And then once the conversion has happened, the users can just use datalad to pull the data from the server. And the really cool thing about using datalad is that you can be very selective on which data you want to get. So let's say that you want to run FreeSurfer recon all, you can just get only the anatomicals so that it makes it much more efficient. And I just want to stress here that we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And I think this project is an example of why open source science and open science is great. Because instead of reinventing the wheel, we just used whatever open toolboxes already existed, and we contributed to them. For example, we started with DCM to NIX to convert DICOMs into NIFTs, and then we worked on HeuDiConv to have a more general conversion from DICOMs into NIFTs. And again, we use datalad to store everything into Git. So as a practical example, this is what the user needs to do. This is from one of my experiments. So the user needs to use a specific naming convention, which is what we actually developed through trial and error. Once the scans are done, all the data are transferred into a server. And the important thing is that with the naming convention, then all this information is stored in DICOM headers, and we use this information to automatically convert the data into a bits dataset using HUDICONV and DCM to NIX. There are a lot of features that make it really, really cool and very, I can't imagine doing this manually anymore because it's really so easy. One of the main features is that the bits JSON files are automatically generated using DCM to NIX, so you don't have to manually change anything. We store the original DICOMs into a folder called source data, so that if you want to convert them, maybe because you want to check with a new version of DCM to NIX, you can still do it. We create some placeholders for the events.tsv files and also dataset descriptors, so that these are valid bits dataset, and when you run the bits validator, it passes it correctly. And then all the updates are incremental and version controlled. And what I mean with that is that, for example, this is an example from, again, one of my datasets. I'm showing you the Git history. And you can see that there's a lot going on. But in particular, it can happen that there was, in this case, there was a bad conversion. And so that's not a problem because we just did git rm, we removed all the data, and then we rerun the conversion. And so we still have a history of all of that. And if we want, we can always go back if there were any mistakes again. But also, there might be some duplicate runs, or we should have, or we had to rename some stuff, and that's not a problem because we can always do it and then keep a history of all of this. Another feature is that all these data sets are modular, and in DataLad terms, they're all DataLad sub-datasets. And what I mean with that is that whenever the data are transferred or converted into our server, we have this kind of hierarchy of center, PI, researcher, and study. In this case, for example, you can see these are different folders, and Gobini is my advisor, Matteo it's me, and FunFace Angles is a study, one of the studies that I run. And all of these are individual repositories. And in this way, you can basically take as much data or as little data as you want while keeping everything version controlled. So how can you all use this? Well, the first thing, you can go on our GitHub page, reproin.repronim.org. You can adopt our naming convention in your center. And we have a walkthrough document that allow you to check exactly what are the necessary steps. You can use HUDICONV. HUDICONV comes with this ReproIn heuristic file that will automatically convert them into bits, and we provide also some Docker and Singularity definition files so that you can use them easily. And that's all, actually. You can just then enjoy your bits datasets. But we also need your help. And because this is started as a collaborative project, we want you to collaborate with us. And we have a lot of things on our to-do list, among others. We would like to create some customizations so that it doesn't need to be as specific with regards to the naming conventions that you need to use in the scanner. It would be nice to extend it to other modalities, for example, MEG or EEG. It would be really nice to automatically fill the events.tsv files so that you don't have to manually do anything. And then, if you're collecting physiological data in the MR scanner, like respiration or heart rate, it would be nice to automatically slice this data and store them into the bits dataset. And that's all I had. I just want to acknowledge that the people that made this possible, starting from my mentor, Yarek Halchenko, and my advisors, Ida Gobini and Jim Haxby, and all the people at the Dartmouth Brain Imaging Center, and the creator of DataLad and HUDICONV. And thank you.